This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, and you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Well, yes. Let us pick up those mics and get on with this, the 301st episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast, where we're going to bust out the magnifying glass, Sherlock up, and avoid looking into the void while trying to discover the truth. It's time to investigate the mechanics of snooping around for clues. With that, my name is Chris.
And I'm Phil.
And I'm Old Man Logan.
Oh, yes, here we go. So,
welcome back.
We're here. It's episode 301. It doesn't feel as, as crazy as 300 was.
It certainly doesn't feel 301-y.
Yeah, I'm having trouble remembering what was the deal. We did the loop.
Yeah, we did core loop.
And then it got all deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we did a thing.
Right. We did the Phil Makes Friends on the Internet segment. Sorry.
We did that.
I was trying to remember. I'm like, yeah, something about the energy of that show was different. But now I remember what it was. It's because it's like two-phased.
That's right. It was two different episodes.
Yeah, it's like you really get like a bonus episode.
And then there's the whole episode afterwards.
Uh-huh.
God, is there anybody in the chat room? Because I don't see any.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of people in the chat room.
Wow.
They're chatting.
When you log in, you don't see anything that's happened prior. So
Interesting.
Yeah, you just say hi. They'll all say hi back to you.
Y'all. I don't know if anybody saw that. Anyways.
I'm wondering if I saw it.
I didn't see
Are you in the right chat room, Chris?
I think so. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not in the right chat room. Who knows? I could just be wrong. It's okay. It's not that important. I don't need to be in the chat room. The chat room's not for me, apparently. Well, with that, I will say, as I normally say, buddy old pal Phil, what is going on?
It's all the breakout prep all the time.
We are going to breakout.
We are going to breakout. For those of you who have kids, go look up the Backyardigans episode called Breakout. There's a whole song. It's like a 50s doo-wop song.
And then from the early 90s, there was Swing Out Sister with Breakout.
Nice. So anyway, a ton of breakout prep. I had to get like the last of the stuff together for Hydra Hackers. I did some layout work for Turning Point so that we could have 2 more dilemmas. So now Senda and I will both be running. We're each running sessions of Turning Point. And there's 4 dilemmas to pick from. So people will have some choices when they come to the table. So I'm really excited. Senda wrote one. I wrote one. Bob edited all of them.
Yeah.
And then I laid them out. So that was fun. So anyway, I've been doing a bunch of stuff like that. I've been doing some work for Third Eye Games, getting their
me too.
schedules in order, which is good. Aloy is now having the revelation of what happens when somebody gives him the entire weekly list of things that need to get done.
That's funny.
So I'm like, based on the timelines for your 11 projects, here's everything that needs to be done this week. On Friday, send this back to me and tell me what you got done. So anyway, I started working on that, and I'm kind of getting in a weekly routine to do that. So that's actually really good. But then I had to switch gears, and I did some parenting stuff. I went to my kids' Taekwondo tournament in Canton, Ohio. So road tripped for 4 hours, went to the tournament for 9 hours, and then road tripped home for 4 hours over the course of 2 days. It was good. The 9 hours in bleachers is hard, but watching my kids compete was really awesome. And watching the other, because you don't go alone. Like there's a whole bunch of other people from our dojang who went. So their kids are competing and the adults are competing. So it was actually it was fun to kind of cheer everyone on. But 9 hours on wood bleachers is not back friendly.
I bet.
I was very pleased because I got up the next morning and I was fine. But I was sore that day coming home. Mm-hmm. But the kids did great. They got a bunch of medals for competition. So I was proud of them. I would have been proud of them if they didn't get medals, but they did a nice job. But I couldn't get anything done. I was kind of wiped out that Saturday night, so I didn't get any work done. So I have been working almost nonstop for the last 2 days. I slept 9 hours in the last 2 days, and I have been a machine for getting stuff done. I mean, I came here to your place after therapy today and then took a nap. I was wiped out. I just took my sweatshirt off, balled it up into pillow, and fell asleep on your couch for an hour.
Yeah, you did.
Which was seriously needed. Plus, I have drank a lot of coffee.
Me too.
Uh-huh. and I fixed the mic stand.
You did, in fact.
You know, the
Phil cast rope trick.
he cast rope trick.
I did. I'm what you call it? I'm trying not to get distracted by the mic stand.
How you've restrained the mic stand to your liking?
Yes, I have. I needed to exert a little control over it, and I needed to warm up. So
I like how you're caressing it.
I'm telling you, this is the problem with it, right? Like this is the thing where I get kind of distracted by the rope work. But anyway, it's nicely restrained and staying in the position I want it in. So I'm very pleased. Anyway, that's enough about my mic stand. I'll post some pictures on Twitter in a few minutes. Robert,
Yeah.
how's you doing, man?
I'm chugging along. The weekend was a little rough because daylight savings time blows. I lost an hour. Here's the fun part. I volunteered to take a 4 p.m. to midnight shift on Saturday to cover for somebody else at work. And then I was already scheduled to do the 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. So I had to work till midnight, then try and get sleep and then be up for 8 o'clock. And that was the night we lost an hour. So I got like 6 hours when I normally get closer to 7. So, I mean, you would be like 6. Wow, that's awesome.
6 is a full night's sleep for
me,
somebody.
6 is a little weak, so I, didn't have a good time there. But any hoozles. Thursday we did DCC. We had our
boy.
first session with first level characters, and then we had an epic meltdown where everybody was rolling crit fumbles all over the place. It was hysterical.
The only thing that saved you was I was not rolling any better.
Yes, the GM dice were not any better than our dice. So
They were no better, so it was okay. Like
Yeah,
it could have been
could have been way
it
worse.
could have been way worse.
But we made it through, and we lived, and so yeah, it'll be fun to see what happens next time out. I finished Voltron Season 5 and started in on Jessica Jones Season 2, which I have, I think, 5 more episodes to go for that. Good stuff. We played Urban Shadows on Sunday night, and I found myself in even more debt than I was after last week, or last time out. So yeah, I think I got the hang of that game. Get yourself in debt. And now I got to get ready for Breakout, man. I have to figure out what the hell I'm bringing. I got to figure out how to pack it all. And yeah.
Dude, we're leaving like in 2 days.
I know.
Now is when you're figuring out your list of what to bring?
I don't have as much to figure out as you guys do, because you guys are like running games and doing.
Yeah, but what about your clothing list and your gear list and which bags you're going to pack in? And
I have a bag. 4 days of clothes.
I don't even. It's like you're speaking different languages. I have like a page in Evernote with checklists.
I have a checklist that I use in OneNote for every year when we used to go to Gen Con, and now for when we go to other cons. I have a checklist of what stuff. I just have to run through the checklist and put it in the bag.
You in the chat room are killing me on this thing.
Yeah, whatever.
Fine. I'm a high A.
We know you're a type A, man.
Highly compulsive personality type. Thank you. Okay. Well.
But that's me, man. How about you, Chris? How you doing?
Oh man, I finished Jessica Jones. I don't sleep anymore again.
Yeah, we need to work on that.
So I mean,
All right, brother.
I have to get up
high five. Yawning high
yawn.
five.
Sure. I have to get up at 5:45 in the morning for work, so I don't really sleep much. I don't know. I would sleep, but I don't know. I tend to be a late night person. I don't know what's going on with me. So I've been sleeping for like 3 or 4 hours a night, taking like an hour nap in the afternoon. So I'm not sleeping enough again. This is like reverted, Chris. It's kind of a problem actually. Like eventually I'll have to get to sleeping again. But that's how I watch Jessica Jones, because of my insomnia. Like, couldn't sleep, so I just sit up and watch Jessica Jones from like 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning till like 4 or 5 in the morning, or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
That's my thing. We had a QCC meeting last night. That Kickstarter starts on April 8th. That's exciting. There's some new stuff in the Kickstarter this year. There's going to be a VIP pass.
Ooh.
Where if you are a VIP, which it'll carry a bit of a price tag to it, but aside from getting invited to the actual VIP party, which will be at Pearl Street this year, as far as we know, for the Kickstarter, that's on Thursday night, where you get to hobnob with all the guests and whatnot. You also will have early access to registration for the games, so like the Kickstarter won't have the games on it like it did last year. Like how people could get in games. Like if you want to get in those games early, you have to be a VIP. So that's a thing.
Are you going VIP or are you going to go VIG?
Probably VIG. We'll probably
Yeah.
go VIG. They're also going to have you'll get a bunch of swag, a special a special pint glass.
I love those pint glasses. I got one last year.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite glass.
Well, we actually will have special ones for the VIPs. There's going to be a room, we think. We're pretty sure where people can like hang out and relax and keep their stuff if they want to.
That's pretty awesome.
So all that kind of stuff.
Yes, you have to call it the VIG so that we can tack master on the end of it.
Yes.
Big master.
Oh, man.
Every day is arm day. I got to make that T-shirt. If I made that T-shirt, do you think we could sell a few? I feel like we could
Yeah,
get
I feel
a
like
few.
we could sell a few.
I think there's at least a half a dozen
That
people.
room that you can hang out and relax in and keep your stuff in, and also have like water and some snacks in there for people too that they could just have. That's what we're planning on doing for our VIGs this upcoming year.
I like the idea.
There's other things, but I'll explain those as time goes on. So there's that. I went and saw Black Panther again. That movie was just as good the second time as it was the first
I still
time.
need to see it second time. Yeah.
I went to a game party on Saturday at my girlfriend's house.
Yay.
Met a bunch of her friends. That was cool.
Yeah.
Played code names with them and played a really terrible supernatural game called Hunt the Truth or Hunt something or another. It was bad. Like Bob's games were all better than that game was. That was obviously a Hot Topic special deal thing, right? Like somebody paid for man, we could have designed a better game than that game. That game was garbage. Just saying.
Wait, I'm getting mixed feels about this because like the way you're saying it is kind of undervaluing our game design skills. Like you're just saying the game was terrible.
No. That game is terrible. Like we could have actually put a good game in that spot.
Oh, in that same space.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
he's not downplaying my
saying, like,
game creation
if
skills.
that garbage is getting published, there's no reason that our
Oh,
stuff
that we
shouldn't be
couldn't.
published.
Yes, only money at this point. Is
or somebody who knows us to give us
somebody
that
wants to
opportunity.
help us make dice. That's what we really
Yeah.
need. There's a game. I would love to get our Relic Hunters out.
Right? I ran Urban Shadows on Sunday. That I had a rougher time with it this time than I did the first time. I think it was because I was missing the beat pacing on it this time around.
Yeah, I mean, I struggled a little. I've been trying to find my character's place.
There's that. There's also just like Urban Shadows. It's about interpersonal deals and political manipulation. It's also about investigation to a point because a lot of the moves there are like getting information.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, there's a certain amount of information you need to be able to do anything else.
But the move in the game, Hit the Streets, is specifically for that to like go and interact with somebody to find stuff out. It's actually what that move is for. There's also like you're supposed to get put in troublesome situations so you can decide whether you want to throw down or run away. And harm in that game is brutal.
Yeah, it's not really to be messed with. Like it's not trivial.
So that was a thing. And I got to play. We got our session 0 of Stars Without Number on. So play a little sci-fi OSR with
right.
Christopher Gray, P.K. Sullivan, Jib from Happy Jacks, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name, Tyron or somebody from Happy Jacks.
How did you get hooked into that group?
Me and Chris Gray are friends.
No, I knew that, but
He asked me to play.
Okay, I was gonna say so. He went and got
organized
the
that
rest of
stuff,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, I knew you'd done stuff with Chris. So
That game will be fun. We're on a ship called the Starlight Dancer.
you got 2 hit points. We'll see how long you last.
Yeah, we'll see. Nobody else has very many hit points. Somebody's got 9. That's a lot. Somebody's got like 6. That's how
You
that
just gotta get
goes.
to level 2. Like all you need to do is.
I don't think so. You only get another D6 of hit points, and my con's a -1.
It's okay.
Dude, we rolled straight down the line too.
Oh yeah, man. That's what you call it. That's how That's how DCC went. Bob got a 1.
We actually rolled. Like most things randomly. Like you can roll a lot of stuff in that game randomly, like your profession and a variety of different things. Yeah, we did a whole lot of random rolling. So that's what I did.
That's cool.
All right, I guess we should move on to our ad spot.
Are you ready?
No, because I have to switch it over. I'm not doing this. So we might have had a discussion beforehand about how I might do this in an Australian accent. It sure ain't happening this time.
So you got to give some background, right? So this, this product, right, Conjure Hagalaz,
Yep.
is written by Blake Ryan.
Blake
right?
Ryan Batman, yes.
I don't think he uses Batman on his actual.
No, but that's,
Right.
that's what we call him.
That, well, we know him as Blake Ryan Batman, right?
Yes.
But Blake is from Australia,
Uh-huh.
and I had floated out the idea that, like, wouldn't it be great if we did this in an Australian accent? And Chris is not one to shirk from a challenge, so he's like, "Yeah, I got it," and he starts reading it, and it is decided. It starts as an Australian accent
For like 2, maybe 3 words.
and then it
just-
winds. And then it winds up as like an English woman serving tea while telling you about Cthulhian horrors.
Yeah, pretty much.
And no matter how many times, like you watched a video on Australian accents, you gave it a noble try for 7 to 9 minutes. And in the end, we've decided not to.
Not this week.
Not this week.
But
we are going to summon Sean P. Kelly.
We might summon Sean P. Kelly.
Sean P. Kelly's Australian accent is also awful, but consistently bad.
Consistently bad?
Yeah, like he can do it like over a number of words. Brett dies every time he does it, but I think it's hilarious.
So we'll be doing it.
See, even Kevin said,
Yep, even Kevin Lovecraft said
just
it.
channel Sean P.
Perhaps.
Kelly.
But not today.
When before we're done with this ad campaign, which will last another 2 weeks, we will do it.
So
Speaking-
you're giving yourself a challenge in 2 weeks. You're going to be able to do this in the.
Yes. Now,
Okay.
there is an announcement that I want to throw out there before we do this ad. For the month of April, we're going to have a deal on advertising.
Oh, okay.
If you are an indie game designer or you want to have a pre-roll, this is before the show starts, ad on Misdirected Mark or Pandas Talking Games or Down with D&D. For $30, we will do a pre-roll ad for you, and then also you will get your links and logo and a link back on the QCC website, and in the con book, which will be digital, and there will be print copies for certain people because we're not going to do a print book, but there's an add-on where you can get a print book that costs $5 if you really want them that bad.
For the con book?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like it electronic because I
Yeah.
want to keep
Yeah.
it on my phone.
Some people want them printed, so we're gonna we'll if people really
Limited
want
print
them,
run.
Well, no, not even limited. If you want one, it's $5
we're going to Kinko's and making
on
it.
the Kickstarter. Like,
Yeah.
there's an add-on for a print version of the comic book. Where, like,
I'm with you,
otherwise
man.
You get it for free digitally.
I'll tell you what, I like that scheduler thing that
Tabletop events.
I like tabletop events. I also like the one that Breakout's using.
Oh, okay.
But I like tabletop events is great. Like that's easy.
So there's an ad package for $30. You get an ad in the con book and on the website for the QCC, and a pre-roll, which is before the show starts, on one of those 3 shows.
Is the pre-roll like we're gonna do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of us will do it on one of our
Sweet.
shows, whatever
Yeah.
show that they want it on.
And is it
So,
just one time on one show?
one time on one show?
Okay.
If somebody really wants more, you can talk to me about that, but we'll negotiate price. But
Yeah.
there you go.
Sounds
super
like a good
cheap,
deal.
super cheap ad
Yep.
space and you can only buy it during the month of April. So I just want to throw it out there. All right, let's talk about Conjure Hagalaz. So Conjure Hagalaz is a role-playing game about explorers, investigators, and espionage agents in a supernatural fantasy world. I mean, who doesn't want some supernatural fantasy espionage
Absolutely.
Right.
gaming, right?
Right. I like that.
Yeah. Halfway between traditional games and narrative powered by the Apocalypse games, this is a great on-ramp for those seeking to try out more traditional or more narrative style of play. So it's that middle ground. So if you have a group that's more traditional, you can play more narrative. If you have a group that's more narrative, you can play some more traditional type stuff.
I like that a lot, actually. I mean, on-ramp games is on-ramp games are a big thing.
Yeah, it's true. If you want to play a sorcerer, a Kitsune, or a druid, they're in this game. If you'd like to play an orc, a cryomancer, or a satyr, those are also in the game. There's even my favorite, the dwarf, which is a giant
Badger.
anthropomorphic badger.
The badger.
A badger with an axe.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, it's like a badass dwarf.
I mean, the closest you can get to that in any other game is to play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I know, another strangeness, right?
Yeah.
So as your characters investigate the underworld, your characters could investigate the underworld. They could explore astral space and undertake espionage on the many moons. And as you do that, you're creating an interactive story with the other players. The Conjure Hagalaz encourages group storytelling in the fantasy world of Rakirta, via the Fate Weave, which is a way to link character goals, motivations, and life events. And you know more about this than I do.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff on it. It has a lot to do with finding connections in your backgrounds and finding connections based on like your like current objectives and stuff. So you can have them like you can have links that like kind of go back. Like, you know, Bob and I were both trained at the same monastery. Or it could be a link like both Chris and I want to see the 5-armed demon killed. Like those then create like they're like a bond. They're like a bond kind of thing.
Yeah. So this game, it includes maps, creatures, spells, espionage moves, and guides to playing and running the game. It's got a pretty clean layout. It's black and white on the interior, but there's some color pieces of art in there too.
That's cool.
Yeah. Conjure Haglass is available now at Drive-Thru RPG, and I love this tagline of "Come for the sword chucks and stay for the astral plane."
I'm amused that there's sword chucks.
I know sword chucks are great.
You gotta love sword chucks.
Who doesn't love sword chucks?
I feel like sword chucks is a weapon you have to be proficient in.
I mean, if you're not, like,
right? If you're not,
and you roll a 6-,
Yeah.
or whatever it is, I think it's 7 or 8- in this game.
I want to make the move for sword chucks on a 10+. You do terrible harm to your enemy, and choose to strike another.
On a 13+.
Oh, because it goes higher,
Yeah.
right? Well, I know. I was going to do the Powered by the Apocalypse one. So, like, the 7 to 9 is like you do harm, but you have to move around erratically to, to keep these things under control. Take a -1 forward. You hit an ally. You do damage to yourself, and then on a 6-, it's simply choose a limb that you wish to lose. The GM will tell you what happens.
That's right. There you go. I really feel like the simple way to do that is like instead of having a move, you just put the dangerous tag on sword chucks
and just leave it open for the the GM.
Yeah.
Dangerous and messy.
No, I like the dangerous and messy. No, I like on the 6-, like choose a limb. The GM will tell you what happens to it. Oh, I like that even better because then you can put messy and dangerous on it.
I mean, because if you just put messy and dangerous, you could do that anyway on a 6-. Heck, you could do that on a 7 to 9.
I know.
Yeah.
I just like the idea that there's a weapon that every time you use it, you're potentially going to take a limb off.
or do some serious damage to it.
Consult
It's
limb
pretty
loss
funny.
subtable.
But only if you're not proficient with it.
Yeah. If you're proficient, so then if you have the proficiency, it just moves the 6- to the 7 to 9.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, we're going to go to the garage now.
Oh, on our way.
Access granted.
I do love our AI that opens the garage for us.
I installed that thing a few years ago.
Yeah, several years ago.
It's not as fun as the workshop.
It's not as fun as the workshop.
It doesn't have a catchy. It doesn't have a catchy one.
Garage.
No, it can't be. It can't be a metal one.
It doesn't flow. Yeah.
Like,
It needs to be like a show tune, like "Welcome to the Garage," right? Like
But
something cheesy.
Why?
I don't know. Don't all our segments need songs?
No,
Oh,
because it's the garage, right? It's been that for forever at this point.
Things evolve, Chris.
the workshop didn't have a song in the beginning. It just had that. Shop sound that you. Yeah.
But I really like our AI in the workshop.
Okay.
Plus,
well,
it's really clean in here.
all right. I think we're losing the folks.
Anyways,
guys.
we have done
we're
our
losing
share of-
Showwood.
Showwood? Is it a thing?
We're losing.
Oh. Now
MMP just went flaccid.
oh, man.
Bring it back. Excite me.
Where's the fluffer?
Anyways,
Tell me something exciting.
so we've done our share of discussions about
Talk to me like those French
investigations
girls.
in RPGs. I'm just going to ignore you now. In those, we spent a lot of time talking about how to GM them because there's an art to running a good investigation. But investigative games can be helped immensely by having good mechanisms that support investigation. So tonight, we're going to go into the garage, which I like the AI and how clean it is because it's fills and it's organized really well. It's easy to find stuff. And we're going to pick apart some of the investigation mechanics in games and look at how they work and how different games use these mechanics to accomplish investigative tasks. But first, we need to talk to the man with the definition about what we're going to say when we say investigative mechanics. So Phil, Definition Panda, hit me.
Yeah, let's do it up. So let's get to what an investigation is, and then like what its goal is in the game. Our textbook definition: investigation to search out and examine the particulars in an attempt to learn the facts about something hidden, unique, or complex, especially in an attempt to find a motive, cause, or culprit.
So we're figuring out mysteries.
I mean, I like this: hidden, unique, or complex.
It's really good.
and motive, cause, and culprit.
Let me just tell you, when I was looking through the show notes earlier to get ready for the show, that definition drove me nuts. I had to look it up on the internet to make sure that he copy-pasted it right, because it feels like it's not a sentence.
Doesn't it?
It feels like there's something broken in there.
Even when I read it, right?
Yeah.
But that's
right from Misdirected Mark, word scramble.
Yep.
Dictionary.com was what I was shooting for there.
Anyway, so yeah, we're talking about mystery. So in investigation, there are 3 major activities that are taking place.
Okay.
So the first one is the acquisition of clues, right? Like we need to find clues.
Because otherwise you can't really solve a mystery.
We really can't do anything else without finding clues. So acquisition of clues is the actual like getting our hands on with either by touch, by scent, with any of our senses, some clue, some piece of information that is going to advance the plot towards the discovery of the mystery. So that could be like finding a blood spatter in the wheel well of a car. It could be spotting an out-of-place book on a shelf. It could be locating a murder weapon that was like tossed in the bushes, right?
Those are all great examples.
Yeah, that's acquisition of clues. What happens after that?
Well, once you have these clues together, you need to learn. You need to figure out what they mean. You need to understand them.
Yeah, because just because you found a splatter of blood doesn't mean you actually know much more than that.
Yeah, so this is finding meaning and context to the acquired clue in order to advance the plot towards the discovery of the mystery. So like unraveling the mystery through understanding these pieces that you've put together. So you have this parchment that you found that has an ancient Sumerian prophecy, but then you're trying to figure out what that ancient Sumerian prophecy means in the grander scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
The tire tracks you found, then you realize that they belong to a 1978 station wagon. So
Right.
that gives you the lead to the next part of the mystery.
Yep.
And the blood on the knife is not human, so that is probably a piece that is a hint of the greater context of what is going on.
Exactly.
Now, like if it's like not human because it's got a bunch of DNA in it that is unhuman-like, then that means one thing. But if it's not human as it has a bunch of DNA in it that makes it like a mix of human and monkey DNA, that means something different.
That'd actually be pretty hard since there's 96% homology between chimpanzees and humans.
Sure.
To actually separate those. Not impossible, just it's pretty tight. But anyway, I'm with you.
What if you have a humanized chimp?
Aren't we humanized chimps?
That's a good question. Are we humanized chimps?
Before we wax philosophically about that, the last piece, after you have acquired clues and after you have understood what they are, you actually have to put them together to solve the mystery. Right? Like there's you need to basically look at the clues and be able to piece them together to tell a narrative. Right? Like ultimately when you solve a mystery, there's like a critical mass of clues, and once you have put them together, you're like, oh, this makes sense. Like for example, based on this gun wound, the blood that we found, and that coin that was at the crime scene, clearly it was Camden.
Clearly.
Right? So
Clearly.
but solving the mystery is the final part, right? Because that is the goal, right?
Yeah, I mean that is what you're trying to do. So once the idea is once you've accumulated enough clues, and whatever that is, because sometimes players are clever and they figure things out before they have acquired all of the clues. But so you're looking for that critical mass, where they understand and then can solve the mystery, and then deal with whatever that next step is in solving the mystery, catching the bad guy, accusing the person,
Pulling the rubber mask off,
stopping the ritual at the location, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I, you bring up a good point that you see this like with TV. When you see this like on TV with procedurals and in movies with mysteries, that you can that critical mass is really dependent on who is looking at the clues.
That's very true.
Because for some people, it's like, oh, I only need to see 3 of these clues, and I know it's this person, right? As opposed to having to see all of the clues and still at times not getting it, right? Like that, I mean, that happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So these mechanisms, like how does this go together? So, let's take a look at that. There are mechanisms that help support these activities.
Okay, let's talk about them.
In nearly all the cases I could think of, and I was trying to think about this across a broad number of games, most of the mechanisms that I've seen in games focus on the first two activities, acquisition and understanding of clues.
Because they usually lead you down the trail because it's gumshoe.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Gumshoe in a little bit.
Yeah, we will.
But not so many that talk about solving the mystery. A lot of times, the way I've seen games laid out is there are mechanisms to help you get all the clues, but the actual piecing it together, you still have to do yourself. And, I think the belief is that once you have enough of these clues, that the mystery basically puts itself together.
Because pattern matching in human beings.
Yeah, and I think my belief is that about 75% of the time in role-playing games, that is true. But there are times where I've seen a table full of clues and people kind of looking at it like, I don't know, and being like, no, it's so obvious, because when you're on the GM side of the screen,
Well,
right?
when you know it.
Right. You're like, no, it's so obvious. Can't you put them together, monkeys? Assemble this mystery and end this game, right? So that's like I said, 75% of the time, I think that works out fine. 25% of the time, I've seen the gears grind a bit. But the goal of this, the goal of these mechanisms, that we're going to talk about, assist in that acquisition and understanding, which then propels the mystery forward, because that's part of what it is to do a mystery. So
it's funny. The reason we sound check early, and I try to get you to get all hyped up is so I can get your level, but you're always way more hyper
once the show starts.
Yes,
I know it's an.
I think another thing.
You're the worst pre-mic check person ever.
Another thing that might be factoring into it is the way he's got the mic pointed.
No, he's fine. Don't move. I already fixed it.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm not moving. I'm
do
just
not move
because
anything.
it's here.
I don't care. It's fine.
I'm just
adjusted it.
I just like touching the rope.
That's fine.
Just leave me alone. I'm having a moment with my mic stand.
Yeah, he is.
Shh, good mic stand. Okay.
Where are we at?
Yeah. So we're talking about what are the what are the kinds of mechanisms? What are the kind of mechanisms that handle acquisition and understanding?
Well, one of them is attributes.
There we go.
So the character's primary attributes. These attributes are universal to the character, so they are open to any character to attempt. So, for example, if you're an intelligence-based character, you can then find the clues in a book. And then if you're a wisdom-based character, you can make a wisdom check to determine the meaning of the clue in the book, assuming your game has that mechanic in it.
Yeah. I mean,
now, strangely enough, this is actually flipped in Dungeons and Dragons, because it's wisdom for perception to determine the meaning of or to find the clue, and then it's intelligence investigation to determine to determine the meaning of said book.
Well, you can tell I wrote it.
Yeah, that's funny.
I think the thing about attributes is that for the vast majority of games, obviously not all games, Fate being one of them, attributes are a thing that are almost universal. So it becomes an easy tool if you don't build other things onto your game. Attributes can often do this kind of legwork for you. Mm-hmm. Okay, the next one then would be skills. So skills are specific trainings that a character has. They sometimes can be used without training, i.e., some sort of investment,
point by expenditure, whatever it is.
Exactly. Level spend.
Gain because of class based or whatever.
Exactly. So those skills tend to be more generalized, and then there are more specific skills that require training / investment. So, for instance, like using a biology skill to perform a DNA analysis. Mm-hmm. Right? Or using your history skill to recall relevant facts about a historical figure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Another thing is gear. So this is the equipment that is used or needed to acquire a clue. So I'll get to the examples in a second. This can be used in terms of narrative positioning, or it can be a bonus to an attribute or a skill. I've seen all of this stuff occur in games. Sometimes these can be used to augment someone who does not have the needed skill. And here are some examples. Using image enhancement software to reveal the killer in the shadow of a picture. I mean,
come on. That's the ultimate, that doesn't really work, but
Well, here's the thing. You have a DNA sample, but if you don't have the lab to check the DNA sample, even if you have the training, it doesn't matter. You need the equipment to go with the skill. Otherwise, the skill doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. I mean, or you could do that thing from Mission to Mars. Clearly this strand of DNA is, what is it, plant?
Phil, just because I told you that you were too loud before doesn't mean you needed to get quieter now. I actually adjusted the mixer for
that. I listen, I can't stay at one level. I go up and down on this thing.
Oh my god.
There we go. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Can we move on?
Yeah. Let's move
Uh-huh.
on.
Please.
Another example is you could use a
Yes.
tricorder to collect information on the composition of the hull of a crashed ship.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
and then you
absolutely.
can figure out like what hit it, what caused it to deteriorate, the reasons why the ship crashed, especially if there are no discernible reasons, or if like a bunch of air leaked out of the ship but there's no discernible hole in the ship.
Right. So, for instance, like a piece of gear, like a tricorder, can acquire you a clue, but you may then need to actually you then need like to understand
The
it.
tricorder is the data.
Yeah.
The skill to analyze the data is the understanding the clue.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And then that piece fits into the larger piece. And I liked, so when I was reading the show notes earlier, and we'll get to it later, you were talking about that whole like putting the mystery together thing, how there's not really mechanics for that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, right?
We'll talk about that. It's an interesting thought. Like the more I was like, do we really need that? And the more that I thought about it, the more that we're talking about it, the more I'm like, it would be nice to have a game that had some stuff like that in it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that right at the end because I have some ideas about that for Tales from the Loop.
Hmm.
Okay. So
Want to do the games that use them
I
now?
absolutely do. Let's just do a couple of example ones so that we can talk about them.
Tell me about D20 3.5.
Right. We're going to have to, so first of all, just as an aside, we're going to have to get ready to change this because I usually leave 3.5 out because it's like, well, it's Pathfinder, it's somewhat relevant, but as we know,
New Pathfinder's coming.
new Pathfinder's coming. I may need a new example. All right. So in 3.5, right, there are basically two mechanisms for investigation. So the first one is skills, and the second one is magic.
Yes, if we're talking about the fantasy.
Absolutely. If we're talking about the fantasy version, right?
Magic.
So with skills, right, we make a skill check,
Uh-huh.
and if we are successful, then we
Get information.
We get information. If we fail, we don't.
Generally, yes.
Generally, we're gonna. I mean, if we're talking about GMing investigations, which we have, you would not want that failure to be a dead stop. But if we go by the rules of the game, failure in a skill check is often failure to achieve whatever the skill check
That
was
is
going to do.
generally true.
Yes, not that I agree with it. I'm just saying that
It's-
that's how it's written.
It's a weird. It would be for the purposes of this example. Let's just use that because we would have to go and read the skill to figure out
Yeah,
exactly what it says.
right. But
'Cause they're all
usually-
so weird with the weird charts and whatnot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. And then with magic, clues are often gained by the expenditure of a resource,
Yes.
which is a spell slot.
Yep, because magic is a resource in the game.
Yep.
Your spells that you can cast and all that good stuff.
I mean, speak with dead, right? So speak with dead is a resource, but
Yep.
it is a huge clue generator.
Hey, who killed you?
Yes. Now, I mean, not that we're talking about GMing stuff, but if you are doing fantasy-based mysteries, you need to keep magic. You need to keep account of magic as a investigation mechanism,
It is an investigation mechanism,
right? Because speak with dead is a kind of a buzzkill for mysteries. If the
Well,
dead person can, no, you have to. Of course, I didn't see who killed me, right?
They stabbed me from behind.
Yes. Which
I saw them cast a spell at me, but I didn't see what they looked like.
Right. Here's the GMing tip before we keep going. If you are going to do that, and you probably should, otherwise your mystery ends relatively quickly, they better have a useful clue. Because if somebody just burned a spell slot to find out, oh, I got backstabbed, because you don't want anyone to discover the killer in the first act, you had better, like, that spirit better have something else to say as well. Like, oh, I didn't see him, but I did notice he had this very interesting silver buckle on his shoe
Yeah.
as I was laying there bleeding out.
Or somebody stabbed me in the back with a dagger that was from above, meaning they were taller than me.
yeah, something
Right, like stuff like that.
Or they dropped the dagger after they pulled it out, and the dagger had this intricate marking on it.
Yes,
Yeah,
like
stuff like that.
Exactly. Like, sorry, I'm not going to tell you who the killer is in Act 1, but as a consolation prize, because you spent the spell slot, here's a...
Yeah, you get some sort of information, right?
Yep. Now, I put D20 first because that classic success versus failure problem is actually what inspired the next system we're going to talk about, which I think is probably, when it comes to investigations, the best investigation system that exists, which is
Gumshoe.
Hell yes.
We talked about Gumshoe
A lot.
more than once. Yes. So investigative skills often have a ranking between 1 and 3. When you have a ranking in an investigative skill, that means you are an expert at that thing. When you are near a clue and you have any ranking in the relevant skill, or you ask about anything having to do with your skills, you just get the clue, right? Because that's part of the game.
Acquisition, understanding,
Yeah.
like all of it.
Acquisition and understanding are immediate because it's leaving you to figure out how they go together. But
Right.
really, they want you to have the clues to piece that to figure out what to do with them.
Yeah. In fact, there's a secondary mechanism, the spend.
Yep, where you can get additional information and understanding about clues.
Right, above and beyond the useful part, like you get like the fast lane information.
Or it could be just like a secondary thing to help solve the mystery.
That's what I mean. Like it's like the fast lane. Like if because the clue that you get with just having a point is enough to propel you into the next scene.
Sure.
But usually, if you make a spend, you get like additional information that either gets you there faster or prepares you for some twist up ahead. Yeah.
Those are good. Those are good things. Or it gives you a piece that you, because I like also the one where it makes the picture clear.
Yeah.
Because
that gets you faster to the end of the mystery.
I don't know.
No?
Yeah, I suppose. I guess it can increase your critical mass more.
Well, that's interesting. We can do like a clue formula.
Yeah, like having extra clues increases the speed with which you will reach critical clue mass.
Or having more understanding of the few clues that you have.
Yeah.
Can also lead to that.
I always figure more information is just more understanding about a clue is more clues, basically. It's more information.
Yeah. I'm with you. I know what
Yeah.
you're saying.
So that's interesting to me. So that all leads to that Gumshoe thing, though. But that is predicated on the idea. Well, we talked about core loop last week, right? So the core loop of a Gumshoe game is you go to look at a thing, you get information about the thing that will lead you to the next part.
Exactly.
So you can get more information about the thing.
Yep.
So it's the trail methodology.
They don't call it Trail of Cthulhu for nothing.
Correct. And they don't call it the spine for nothing, and they talk about Gumshoe.
Exactly.
But then those extra spends to me have always been like filling in the gaps and the pieces and the puzzle pieces so that you can eventually see a clearer picture.
Yeah. I like that.
So what's the next game?
Tales from the Loop.
There you go.
That's one I'm running right now. So Tales has a pretty simple system. Tales is a dice pool system where you have attributes and skills. When you make a check, you add up your attribute and skills, roll that many six-siders. A single 6 on one of your six-siders is actually all you need to gain the base amount of information.
Okay.
So whether you're doing whether you're trying to find a clue, whether you're trying to look at through a book and find a piece of information, a single 6 on the die will get you a success. Extra successes allow you, based on the skill, to purchase extras. They're kind of like the pick lists in Powered by the Apocalypse, but you have to get extra successes, and then you can buy additional things. Like you can ask an additional question, or you can do it faster than normal, that kind of thing. And then, as not to stymie the game, there are actually a couple of other mechanisms that feed into making sure that you get your 6. So you have things like your pride, you have items, you have luck, and pushing it. And all 4 of those supporting mechanisms will work to get you another 6. So the game is heavily structured on acquiring clues, but at a cost, right? Every one of those things, your pride, item, luck, and pushing it, all cost you something in the game.
They're resources.
They're all resources. So it's heavily driven to get you the 6. Now, it does tell you, and it's very explicit about this in the rule book, that if you do fail, so if you choose not to engage those mechanisms or whatever, and you don't get any 6s, you don't get what you're trying, but you can't stall the plot. So it says there's a couple paragraphs on failing a roll, and it says very specifically that while they don't get what they're looking for, something else happens to push the game forward, because you can't, that's like the death knell of a mystery. Yeah. Okay. Hey, the next one. Tell me about the investigation move in the biggest Powered by the Apocalypse game ever written by page count.
City of Mist. So this is probably this might be my favorite investigative mechanic in a game. even more so than Gumshoe, which is saying something, right? So this is when you use your abilities to seek answers to burning questions. Roll plus power. In this game, your tags are your power that you can bring to bear in a situation.
Okay.
On a hit, you get clues equal to power. You spend your clues on a 1-to-1 to ask the MC a question about the subject of your investigation, or ask another player a relevant question about their character. They must give you either a straight answer or a solid lead. On a 7-to-9, they also choose one. Your investigation exposes you to danger. The clues are fuzzy, incomplete, or part true or part false. Or whoever or whatever you are asking the questions can ask you one question as well. You answer on the same terms.
Oh, nice.
So the thing is it gives you a straight answer or a solid lead. You know you're going to get a straight answer or a solid lead.
Yep.
Unless you pick the fuzzy, incomplete, or part true, part false.
I like how the other two choices on that open you up.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Like one opens you up to direct danger. The other one makes it difficult because you now have to start revealing stuff yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a problem. Like if you're trying to discreetly, come up with a clue, like you can't pick that choice.
That's right.
Right? Because otherwise your motives might be revealed or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Say like you're undercover.
Uh-huh.
Or you're using a cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
I love it because it's that. Really, I love it for the. The opening yourself up stuff is good, but it's about letting the players ask the MCs questions about the situation. So they're not. It's not saying give a clue, this, that, or the other thing. The players are actually going to ask the questions that they want the answers to.
Yeah, it's good. It's good in that way. It'll also trigger a bunch of times because if they don't get the answers they want, they're going to have to come back to this move and dip into the well again.
True. Although there's no reason they shouldn't get the answers that they want because they're going to get a solid lead or a straight answer from
if they don't ask the right questions.
That's true.
That's the if there's one pitfall to this move, it's that it relies on the players to ask questions that will move things forward.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't ask questions that'll move things forward, then you have to keep coming back to this move and finding stuff.
You would hope that the setup of the scene would make that easy to do. Like, for instance, think of your vampire bloodbath at that bar club thing in your Knights Black Agents game.
Yeah.
Like, I would roll, and my the thing that I would ask you would be like, what actually happened here?
Right. Yeah, and I remember because when we did it in Knights Black Agents, the use of forensics analysis, the blood splatter and gunfire, was able to reveal oh, it looks like these guys shot in every direction imaginable.
Yeah.
Right? Like it looks like absolute pandemonium in here. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely want to I think there's an art for asking the correct questions. And if players aren't investigation savvy, there's a slight danger with this move. I think the move's awesome. Don't get me wrong. I think the move's fantastic. Just that it's going to rely on the players coming up with the right questions.
Mm-hmm. So the thing that I always have a problem with Gumshoe is that.
Yeah, I just tell you stuff. Good luck.
Well, not only that, you just tell us stuff, but if we don't actually have the right investigative skills to bring to bear.
Yeah. Now the thing is about Gumshoe is that they very carefully tell you during character creation to line up all the characters and make sure that everyone has one of every skill. And to the point that the number of players in the group determines the number of investigation points each character gets, because when there are less characters, everybody gets more investigation points to spread them out. But
except we split up a lot.
That's the problem is that if you split up a lot, then it becomes problematic, because if the person with blood splatter analysis doesn't show up to the crime scene. But it's also a modern game, so take pictures or call, because I think that's actually I think that's a thing you can do, is you can analyze like a picture or a video.
You can look at stuff.
So anyway, yes, but that is the it's two sides of a coin, right? Ask the questions or be handed information.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm always a big fan of
I'll tell you what would be a neat
questions.
I'll tell you what would be a neat compromise to that is on the spend in Gumshoe, ask me a question.
That would be interesting.
Right? Like, I'll give you this tidbit about this blood splatter on a spend. Why don't you ask me a question? I'll tell you something more about it.
Yeah. That would be
Well, that'd be a fun little hack.
that'd be interesting.
We jumped the queue on that. Anyway, so our play experiences, right? In play, these mechanisms are designed to move the investigation forward, right?
Yep.
Like that's the whole purpose of having these mechanisms is to keep the mystery moving forward. And each time they're successfully engaged, a clue is gained or further understood.
And then multiple engagement of this mechanism, whatever the mechanism might be, should be moving the investigation towards the solving of the mystery.
Absolutely, right? That's the whole purpose.
That is the core loop of play.
Yep. So before we talk about using these mechanisms in play, why don't we check in with the chat room and see what they're up to? But Christopher, before we go talk to the chat room, because they seem a little punchy tonight, tell me about another show on the network.
Hey, Bob, you've heard of a show called Pandas Talking Games, right?
You know, that sounds vaguely familiar.
There's like this guy named Phil and this girl named
Two
Sunda,
hosts. Yeah.
young lady named Sunda, and they answer questions about role playing games. They do it from the perspectives of like one shots and campaigns. Although they've been doing this great AMA lately, like for like 17 episodes or something like that. Or was it only 6?
So
It might
far,
have been a fewer than 17.
I know they talked about Crime Lord Animal Game at one point in time.
as asked by you.
Yes, I completely did ask them to talk about that. But Bob, do you listen to Pandas?
I listened to some of them, and then I kind of fell off the wagon. But I'm terrible at listening to podcasts, so don't take me as a...
He's on a podcast.
It's a brilliant podcast, and you should listen to it by all means.
Especially because they're ridiculous.
Yes.
And if you're not a patron, you should be a patron so you can listen to the outtakes.
Oh, man, the outtakes.
Because they're hilarious.
Oh.
All right, so that's Pandas Talking Games. You can
Yeah.
catch that Mondays. It's when it comes out. You should be there.
True that.
Absolutely.
All right, what's going on in the chat room?
So, a lot of love for Tales from the Loop.
Well,
A lot
yeah,
of shared
people love
love for
that
that game. Digging it. Everybody's cool about that. Ange had a question about Gumshoe. How do you handle the balance between standard clue and extra on the clue without over-prepping yourself into oblivion?
Not every clue has to have extra.
Yeah, because you can actually tell a player like there isn't anything extra on that.
Correct.
Two, I think, I will say from a jamming point of view and a prep point of view, the most important thing I can do in a mystery is write the one page, what really happened.
Yeah, what's really happening?
Because with the what's really happening, I don't have to always prep what the extra is, but since I know what happened, I can tell you like a little bit more of the story. Right? Like that clarifying thing that you said,
Yeah,
right? Like,
absolutely.
So if I know, like, for instance, that example you were using about the vampire in the middle of the nightclub, right? The lights go out, the vampire starts murdering people, and everybody's shooting all over the place.
Yeah.
When we do the forensic analysis, right? The initial clue is like, it was pandemonium. There's gunfire everywhere, right? But if you want to know more, right, I would say like, it looks like it looks like all of it started in the back corner of the club. Right, like based on where gunshots were or whatever, looks like everything kind of points to this back corner of the club, and then drives you a little closer to at least you go over there and start looking for clues.
Yeah, there you go. So then that can lead you to the next clue
Exactly.
that you might not have picked up on. Right.
Right, but I think if you don't want to have to prep every idea, like as in, okay, forensic, like gunshots reveal this clue, and on a spend reveal this clue, on a 2-point spend reveal this clue. I think then what you do is, if you just have a really good knowledge of what happened,
Then you can, whatever they ask for, you can then relate that information via their methodology.
exactly.
Yep. It's when we did our investigative mystery game episode, that was like one of the best things. Like the what's actually going on, or what actually happened page is super important to have.
Yep.
Anything else?
We're good. Rock and or roll.
All right. Well, now that we've reviewed how investigations work and how games deal with them, we're going to discuss how to put them to use and the problems they cause and ways we can hack them. So, Phil, why don't you tell us how we can leverage these things in play?
Yeah. So here were some of my thoughts about this, right? The first one is clues are a currency.
They are.
Right? Like clues are a currency, which means there's an economy inside an investigative game. Like you need to gain clues and you need to quote spend clues, right? Spend clues is like to propel things forward.
Yeah, as a game master.
Right. So you need to make sure that as a game master, clues keep flowing in the game. And if they dry up there's a really good chance your your game will too, right? Like if all of a sudden there are no more clues to follow, or the mechanisms of your game are stymieing, like on failures, are stymieing the acquisition of clues, then your economy is going to break down.
It's true.
So you always need your economy.
Assuming you're looking at it like an economy.
Yeah, I mean, I think of it like an economy, right? Like, I think my job in an investigative game is to keep feeding out, like, create opportunities for players to get clues. Like, you have to still make rolls, but I need to keep putting you places. And if things start to go stale, like, bad guys have to show up and chase you off, or like something has to happen to propel the game back, forward. Into motion.
I think that's a perfectly valid way to think about it.
Okay. Interesting. So the other thing I think you have to do is, I don't necessarily know if finding clues is interesting. I actually think understanding clues is more interesting. Like, finding them is like, to me, is like, in many cases, so. Like, you found a knife with blood on it. I mean, that's useful because logically I need to find the knife with blood on it. But what's more important is, like, you find a knife with blood on it, and when you analyze it with your skill check, that blood, that DNA isn't terrestrial. Way more interesting, right? So I'm more about kind of hand waving acquisition of clues through narrative, and much more about using the mechanisms for understanding clues. Now, Gumshoe makes it easy for me because Gumshoe's like literally like, do you have a point in chemistry? Good. Here's the thing. Like, does anyone in this scene have a point in chemistry? Great. Here's a piece of knowledge. But if I do this like in tales and stuff like that, I'm apt to just say, like, you find this weird thing on the ground. What I really want you to do is make the skill check to understand what the weird thing is. That's kind of like more of my shtick about it.
So my take on the whole clue thing, like, you think of them as a currency, and then the interesting part is is what you call information about the clue, right? So to me, clues are beats. When you find a clue, it raises a question to me, and then, so like in your example, the bloody knife, that raises the question, like, so we might have a dead body. And then somebody finds a bloody knife. Well, this is the murder weapon, and what do you do with it now, right? Like, that leads to your thing, which is the what do you do with the clue once you found it? Like, how do you acquire the information based on that? Because there are a number of things. Well, in this example, maybe not a number of things, but in certain examples, like the clue was the shot up club, right?
Yeah.
That's a clue. Now we have to find out a bunch of information about said club. Like, the question is like, this club got shot. The question that was raised is the club got shot up.
Sure.
And people died, which is in the middle of the trail that we are following as it is.
Yeah. Who shot it up?
Who shot it up?
Why?
How did it happen? Why is it weird? Why is this weird stuff about it?
Yep.
And every time we asked a question, or a question was raised, we did something to try to get an answer to that raised question. And to me, that is where the interesting play with clues comes in. That's why I think of it as this call and response thing. Like, here's a clue. What do you do? All right, we do this. Well, cool. You do that. Here's some more information, which could be considered a clue. What do you do? And then that goes on until it leads you to the next clue. That is how this is the rhythm of mysteries for me, and that's how I always tend to think about them. Whether they be following, and the clues are always like, the beats are raise question, answer question, raise question, answer question, answer question. You never want to, the same thing like you do for that beat structure thing. You never want to have too many raise a questions in a row, because raising a question is a downbeat in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, answering a question is an upbeat.
Yeah. Yeah, your call and response thing is like the currency thing, right? It's the find and spend.
They're the exact same things, just thought about in two different ways.
Yeah,
Perhaps even the core loop.
That's the core loop of a mystery game. Not usually, but there's just two different ways to think about it. Clues and your the mechanics of the game, anyway, how you can leverage this is it is a beat change also. Like, if your game has more than just mystery to it, like if your game has action to it also, then you will use your investigative part of your game to change the beat.
Yes.
And that is a really good thing to do. So that is a change of pace from fighting or talking or any kind of action sequence. But you can also mix those beats. You can have a clue pop up in the middle of a fight. You can have a clue pop up in the middle of an interaction. In fact,
It's
they
interesting.
often do.
As you're saying that, I'm kind of thinking of my Tales game, and it's interesting because the Tales has kind of a specific structure it follows when it in their own mysteries. That wouldn't hurt to have a change in beat. Like it's a lot of investigation beats before it gets to a payoff.
Well, I always thought that the change in beat in Tales from the Loop is one. These kids are investigating mysteries, right?
Yeah.
These kids are also kids that have to deal with their parents in their lives.
Yeah, and so here's the thing I've been doing, right? So I've been using the published adventures, and they have a very specific structure. So they open with a problem in daily life. They introduce the mystery. There's an acquisition and understanding of clues. Then there's a showdown, and then there's a return to their regular lives.
Yeah.
And
So-
there's in the middle of the acquisition of clues, it might not hurt to change beats with a little thing like a chase, something scary, because it's Tales from the Loop, so they don't fight horrors.
Yeah.
Like,
So a chase, something scary, a return to their real life in the middle of what's going on could also be useful to put in there. Like, oh look,
I think we actually had that. Now that I'm thinking about our last game, everybody went home and went to sleep after.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree. Like there is a thing when kids get too many conditions, they need to have a scene with their anchor. So that's one of those resources. Pushing it will take on conditions, and the conditions slowly bring down your dice pool. So eventually you need to get rid of them. The only way to do that is to go have an emotionally connective scene, which I think is actually pretty brilliant for that game.
Yeah, and that's one of the ways that they're intending for the investigative beats to get broken up.
And that actually happened because Tony was jacked. None of us realized he was like all of his almost all of his conditions except for broken. And we were like, oh, you need to go have an anchor scene. Like we need to change beats right now, and you need to have this scene
And that's how you don't get 3 investigative scenes right in a row.
Yeah, it's really good. The beat change thing is really sharp.
Which is some of the problem that we had playing Urban Shadows is because I kept doing scenes where you were getting information, raising questions and answering questions, but they were just investigation beats constantly instead of a drama beat or a action beat or anything like that. And then the one action beat that happened was pretty quick.
Yeah, because violence in that game is pretty quick.
Yes.
Yeah, violence can't be violence isn't going to be a very long beat in that game unless you're going to let things get killed. Like you brought a fairly major NPC, it took a fairly significant hit, and then it was like, and I'm out of here.
Yeah. Because
that hurt. Gone.
The correct weapon was present to deal with said thing.
Yes. Well, the hunter was there. So
yeah, the hunter with a blessed bow.
Yeah, we were in good shape for taking it on.
Didn't even realize he had a blessed bow.
Yeah. Damn hunter.
Surprise.
Because otherwise, I don't think you guys actually could have heard it.
If blessed is the only thing, then we have problems.
Yeah.
I have access to a demonic weapon.
You do, but it's already a demonic thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
sorry, get us back on track.
Bob, tell us about what you think.
Yeah. So from an in-play perspective, from the player's point of view, I think it's all about engagement. Right? If you're in a mystery game, you need to be engaged at the table and paying attention to what's going on, because otherwise you're going to miss something. And as soon as you miss something, you're detached from where everybody else is in the mystery. So if everybody's got 4 clues and you've only got 2 clues because you were looking at your phone, then you're behind the 8 ball. You don't know what's going on, and it's going to cause problems at the table. If you're missing stuff, and it continues, and you go through the thing, and you're like, well, how did you guys figure that out? What's going on? I don't understand. You can end up with bad feelings about the session you just played, or even the system that you're playing. You're like, oh, that sucked. I didn't get the clues. You have to be there. You have to.
Well, yeah, not if you don't. if the game is about solving a mystery and you're missing clues, then you're not really engaging in the game.
Absolutely.
There's also the challenge that if a mystery spans multiple sessions, that everyone's going to remember said clues.
That's true. Then
Yes,
you need,
and that's
then you need to have
where
a clue list.
collaboration between the players to help each other remember, or just everybody putting together the clue list and
Write some shit down.
Yeah, but yeah, you got to be engaged.
Don't
'cause-
be lazy players.
Yep.
Write some shit down.
absolutely.
I've seen that before, right? Like I've seen players who've, like they come to a mystery, they come to an investigation game, they don't bring anything to write.
Hell, we had a digital corkboard for our Night's Black Agents game
Uh-huh.
because there was so
As you
much
should.
shit going on. Like we needed a murder board.
Yeah. There's nothing better than having a murder board for a mystery game.
If you know your game is going to be that complex as far as conspiracy mystery goes, then you should have that.
Yep.
I once as a GM, I did it for a very short-lived, my All for One Musketeer game. I made clues on index cards.
Nice. So then the clues were present.
And so like when you found a relevant clue, like I just put the index card on the table and left it there.
Yeah.
With like a little picture, like it's a vial, like of some weird liquid, and left it there. So that also helped, right? It created that
Yep.
kind of anchor. All right, so why don't we talk about problems, right?
Sure.
Investigation mechanics can cause problems.
They can, absolutely.
What's the worst one?
So when the failure to find or understand a clue halts a game, that
mean-
that is the biggest thing. That is why Gumshoe exists.
Uh-huh.
That's why I like games where if you know you need to get clues in players' hands and they can just ask you questions and you can craft your answers to hand them the clues.
It's why I think if you're running like a D&D 3.5 investigative campaign, you got to just you got to bend the rules on what failure means on skills.
Hey man, old Call of Cthulhu, like some of those scenarios were like if you don't find the clue, you don't find the clue.
It's hard, man. Like, I mean, and then you die. Like,
Then you die.
Then you die. The Shoggoth eats you.
I like there's I don't remember the name of the module or the scenario, but like there's a clue that if you might not get like a third of the way into the mod and it's like a multi-session module scenario thing. Like if you didn't get that clue, like you can still play all the way through to the end, but when you get to the end, you're just dead.
So here's the thing. On one level, it's Call of Cthulhu, so respect. Right? On the other end, that's dickish.
It's funny though.
Well, it's so typical Call of Cthulhu. Like, it's cool that it's that.
On the bright side, it doesn't halt the adventure, right?
Can I tell you what other game would get away with that? Paranoia.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Paranoia would be the other game where I would be like, oh man, we missed that clue and now we're all dead.
And more importantly, as long as everybody at the table is okay with the possibility. But if you go into a game and you're like, do, and then you get to the end and like, oh, we all, this all sucks because we didn't find that one damn clue.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's like, yeah, be prepared. If it's Call of Cthulhu, yeah, you're
the
probably all
table
going to
stakes,
die anyway.
right?
but-
The table stakes for Call of Cthulhu is you're either going to die or go insane. Pick one. On a 7 to 9, pick one. On a 6-, pick 2. Right?
Yeah, I want to reference something that Jared Rasher just said in the,
Yeah.
in the chat room. He said in a D20 game, setting the base DC for finding something is like a 5, so you can't miss it. But you set an extra if they actually rolling at a 15 plus on the check, for example.
I've done that.
Phil's done that many
I haven't
times.
just done that. Like in creative content modules that I've written for like Baldwin Games and whatnot. Like I'm like, you're just going to give them this clue.
Yes.
In the mod, but if they roll their check and they get like an 18 or higher, then they also get this information.
Yep.
I've written that into
Yeah, Chris,
into games.
that's the thing I said before, right? Like the acquisition of clues is not as interesting
Correct.
as understanding
exactly.
the clue.
I mean,
yeah.
that's the gumshoe thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you the clue. What do you do with the clue?
Right. Mine has been for critical clues. I've done this in D20. I've done this in. I did this a lot in Corporation because Corporation had a degree of success thing called excess. So I would be like, okay, with a pass, you get this. And with 1 excess, you get the base clue plus this, and with 2, you could almost blow the whole mystery open with a 5
Yeah.
excess check.
Now I even have a series of like contingency things to do to people when they fail checks. Like you're still getting a clue, but you messed up your check. So like time passes, and especially in time scenarios. So it takes you a lot longer to get the clue than you were looking for. The people you are hunting or the thing that you were trying to solve, like they've noticed that you're after them, and now they are going to harass you.
Yeah.
Like that's another thing. Like that's the 2 guys kick the door in and try to shoot you and kill you.
Of course. When in doubt,
Send in ninjas.
send in ninjas. That's right.
Send in ninjas.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like if a game does not specifically, if a game says failure is like fail to achieve, and I'm doing investigations, I will always bend that rule. It will always become failure. It'll become success with a consequence, or something to propel the things forward. And that's the thing I really like about Tales, right? Tales basically says that. They're like, look, you can't let the game stall out if the kids miss a clue. Like you have to, like, you don't have to give them the clue, but you have to do something that pushes the session forward. So I think that's what's it called. I think it's very smart.
Yep.
Yeah. What are we talking about next?
I'll talk about another problem: spamming.
Okay.
So spamming is that case where players start like trying to hit their skills constantly to find everything that's possible, right? Like I'm going to make a perception check on the right on the west wall. I'm going to make a perception check on the north wall. I'm going to make a perception check on the east wall, right? I'm going to make a perception check on the floor. Like
that's why we do the thing where like you could make a check for the room, but until the situation changes, you can't make another check.
yes, like this is this is another place where I like Gumshoe, right?
Yeah,
like
because it's a spend, right?
not even a spend. Like you walk in the room
And you get the
I'm just going to tell you what's in here.
Yep.
On the north wall, on the ceiling, whatever. Like we don't have to get into that. But that spamming thing can get tedious. And that spamming thing can get troublesome if it's something like a Powered by the Apocalypse game where if you're not framing the move right, you keep running into chances of like more and more 6 minuses.
It's true.
Like sometimes that gets narratively hard to deal with.
It can, although then you just make moves off screen and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Then you
Bring some heat.
Yeah, you just start turning up dials. Don't mind me. I'm just turning up the heat in here.
And also, like you can make any kind of moves you want. That's the time moves on. Bad guys
Exactly.
kick in the door and try to murder you.
Fall through the floor, separate
Yep.
your ass. Yeah. The other one that I had was
Local authorities come after you.
the other one I had that I thought was sometimes problematic is missing clues. Right? Like we talked about. So we've talked about acquisition and understanding. But there's a point where there's no indication of how many clues you have. Like in a video game, like you have 13 of 15 clues, right? There's no indication that you have gotten to critical mass. Like there's no indication like, hey, based on the number of clues you have, you should be able to solve this.
I don't think that concept right there actually is relevant in role-playing games because I think critical mass is whenever the player characters figure it out.
Right, but sometimes like there's like so there's two problems, right? There's you have all the clues. I can't give you any more, right? And they're still looking. And then there's the they think they have all the clues, but they failed to ask a relevant question and they're missing one and they don't know they're missing it. So they're like, they've doubled down on the impartial information they have, and they're working like super hard to come up with a way that this all links, but it doesn't.
It's always... So that's the thing... To me, this is the thing about role-playing games. The mystery can sometimes go unsolved. Like, they can just fail. Like, that's part of play, right?
I think so.
I mean, the TPK is a thing for a reason. So is the we didn't solve the mystery a thing for a reason, too.
I think depending on stakes, absolutely. Like things can happen like that.
Sure.
But I'm just saying it to me, like that's a problem. Like that's a problem spot. Like sometimes players are often not aware and there's no mechanism for determining like, hey, you don't actually like, hey, you're kind of got a missing, like there's a blind spot in your theory right now.
Now, that never happens with trail.
Shouldn't.
Because you're just following the trail.
Right. And you're being given everything along the way. So as long as you have walked through all the relevant places, which in trail, if you have built your mystery correctly, you should cross along the spine.
I like how I just saw in the chat room, like, the mystery can go unsolved. Emily yelled at me. Emily from
Is that a Wednesday All-Star thing? That
maybe?
a mystery can go unsolved?
I don't know. I don't think so.
She's clearly passionate about it because she said, "You shut your mouth, Chris."
It was funny.
Of course, Senda all capsed it because she was passing on the message.
I love the X-Files. Like if you want to talk about, unsatisfactory mysteries, like The X-Files is like a whole bunch of teasing for many.
Yeah.
Now I will say this. You can tease and have a number of unsolved mysteries for a little while, and then you have to deliver something,
Well, of course.
right? Because that's a beat thing at a campaign level problem. So anyway,
But that's a thing that people should think about. Like, it's a problem, right? Like, it can be a problem if there are missing clues. Now, the missing clues, I don't know if it's a problem, right? Like, there's the way that you looked at it, there's the way that I looked at it. I think those are both interesting ways to look at it. Like, we can all die in combat. Why can't we all just not solve the mystery?
here's my difference. So, we all die in combat is a mechanical problem, right? We roll dice, we die in combat.
No, maybe, because it could also be a tactical problem, which is player choice.
Yes.
People made
Yeah,
the wrong choices, and
absolutely.
everybody died.
Okay,
Yep.
that's fair. Because in a failure to complete a mystery, it's not a character level problem. It is a player level problem.
Yes.
and it's that thing where if you're playing a mystery game with competent investigator characters, and your players aren't competent investigators, the ultimate solving of the mystery falls on the player.
It's true.
But
But
that's
not-
going to get to my hack.
Yeah, but
right?
that's not missing clues, because missing clues is often a mechanical issue because somebody failed a roll.
No. Take your City of Mist, for
And
instance.
somebody asked the wrong question.
Somebody asked the wrong question, or somebody
And
asked
if
a bunch
you-
of questions but never asked the one last question they
and
needed.
if you heard what I said, often a mechanical problem because
Yeah.
somebody failed a roll.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. Like there's a troublesome piece to it. Anyway, that was my thing. Like just talking about missing clues. Like it's hard to mechanize
Here.
how you know you're missing a
I'll
clue.
give you the perfect example of the mystery that didn't get solved in time.
Yeah.
Seven. The movie Seven.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That they didn't solve that fast enough.
Oh.
Because somebody just mentioned in the chat room, and I think Ange just said, like, if the mystery doesn't get solved, something damn interesting better happen.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, like if the mystery doesn't get solved, you should have consequences for that.
Uh-huh.
Like that's a thing that should happen. Like if your kids in Tales of the Loop don't solve a mystery, like there should be a consequence to the loop.
Yes.
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think. I'm not saying that should happen all the time, but like.
No, I think it's perfectly
Yeah.
valid. You cannot solve a mystery, or you cannot solve a mystery in time. It is perfectly invalid. It's perfectly valid. It can't be the theme of your game.
Sure.
Like you can have the heroes come up short because that's a try fail kind of
Yeah.
kind of thing. That's I wholeheartedly agree. Like that is definitely not a problem. Not all mysteries should be able to always be solved by
Plus,
players.
it'll make you really want to catch that serial killer next time you get a chance to.
Absolutely. In fact, that's how you in an investigation. That's how you get something like a multi-session arc,
Absolutely.
because otherwise you've captured everyone.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like what any of those Elementary or any show where they didn't really solve the mystery the first time around.
Uh-huh.
Like, because then usually that comes back later
Yes.
and bites them in the ass.
Exactly.
There's the kind of failure propelling story is a thing that should be thought about. So
Yeah.
just like anything else, like when a mystery has failed to be solved, like don't let that go to waste. That is perfect fodder.
No, that's what you call it. That is that's campaign fuel.
uh-huh.
Now, I will say, in a one-shot, a non-Call of Cthulhu one-shot, I'm angling for solving the mystery because I want everyone to leave the table happy.
Especially like a con game.
Right, in a con game. In a Call of Cthulhu one-shot, that is not necessarily the case because dying and going insane and everything utterly failing is so, Call of Cthulhu that, like, people will happily leave going, oh, it was great. We totally didn't solve the mystery in time. And
Everybody
Cthulhu
died
came
when
out of the
insane.
ground and we all went crazy and he ate us all and blah, blah, blah. Like everybody will leave like having had a good time. Anyway, Bob, what about you?
Yeah. So problems from the player side. This is a thing that always bugged me. Red herrings, whether the GM intended something to be a red herring or not. Sometimes players will get a hold of that clue that's not a clue, and they will beat it like a dead horse. they will just ride that thing into the ground and keep going. It's similar to what you said about trying to figure out what's going on with incomplete information, where they're sitting there and they're grinding, trying to make it fit. And it's like, if you get into the red herring problem, your session's going to drag. You could postpone the discovery of real clues, and frustration. Not good.
I'm going to predict Chris's response to this.
Go ahead.
I'm going to put the envelope to my head, Amazing Kreskin style. Red herrings are good in a game if something interesting will come from following the red herring. Having a red herring that hits a dead end is less interesting than having a red herring that like lures you into a trap with the bad guy or something else.
I was gonna so you were like 70% right?
Okay.
Because I think red herrings are stupid.
Okay. I'm with you. I
I'm
don't
not
like
really
them.
a
I don't
fan.
like them either.
But if you're gonna use them, they
Right.
better be that.
But here's my thing, right?
Now-
So the red herring leads you into an ambush.
Now-
The ambush gives you a new clue.
Look, sure. To me, like red herrings are usually because you have 3 leads, and one of them is a red herring.
Yeah.
To me, if I'm the game master and I'm running and that's a red herring, my red herring better not be a red herring. Just red herring. It better be a fucking dead end.
Quickly.
Yeah, understood as a dead end.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why put it in play, right? Like,
Oh, so you're saying it should be it shouldn't be obscuring. It should be
Yeah.
like chase this thing, and in a few minutes you're wrong. You wasted a bunch of time and resources.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
think of all your police procedurals that you love to watch. Whenever they run into a red herring, it usually just dead ends, and then they go back to a different lead.
Right, and usually the cost for that is
Is time.
time. So like if we're watching
Yeah.
Criminal Minds, when you hit the red herring, the killer kills again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Because you chased down the red herring, the killer had enough time, he killed somebody else.
Now, there's nothing to say that red herring can't spark another subplot,
Yeah.
but it better not be. And even it might even be related to the main plot in some way if you want it to be that way. I don't recommend that unless you're going to go GM 201 or 20 or 301 type stuff on that, because then you need to learn how to hook that back in a meaningful way without it being completely related.
Yes.
Right? Like, how is this related to that? Does it actually impact this in any way, shape, or form? Like, now we're talking about some different kind of techniques. But
I would say there's a GM 201 or 301 technique, the Eureka moment. Mm-hmm. So you've gone down the red herring. It's completely unrelated. But as you're standing there in the room having this, like, I can't believe it wasn't him, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, like, Eureka. Like, you know that moment, like you look
suddenly
over on the coffee
realize-
table, right? You like look over on the coffee table and you're like, the coffee, right? And then that leads you to like, all right,
that's
double
that-
back.
That's kind of that ocean of clues idea that Ken Hite likes to throw out there. Like,
Yeah.
here's an ocean of clues. As you start acquiring more of these clues, eventually you'll be like, oh, that's what we're supposed to be
Right.
doing.
But there's a specific trope. If you want TV tropes, and I think it's called the Eureka moment, is it's when something completely unrelated to the mystery comes up in a scene that gives the detective the insight to solve the mystery.
yes, it's the one missing piece or the
Right.
the
Like
last
like
little
you're
thing.
sitting like you go to the coffee shop and the barista's like, "Oh, I always grind the beans."
Yep.
And then the detective's like, "Grind." Of course.
Yeah.
They ground up the bodies, right?
Yeah.
And then he like races out to the landfill or something.
That is a thing that happens.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
it's I think it's called the Eureka
Now,
moment.
I don't know how you design that into
Oh,
play. Like,
God, I don't know
think-
either.
I don't think you
Yeah,
do.
you might have
Well,
to
you
just
can because you can be
pull it
like,
out.
give me an insight check.
yeah.
Like you're looking across the table and you see this, you see the grinder, like the coffee grinder on the table, like, and then they run off.
Yeah, if they don't figure it out, then you can have them make the insight check or the
Yeah.
Yeah.
or like in D&D that would actually be the investigative check as the putting the clues together check.
Yeah,
Or if
that
they've
is
already-
some 201, 301 shit.
Or if they've already got all the clues, but they haven't pieced it together, and then they chase the red herring, and you give them the Eureka moment, and you just give it to them. You go, you see the thing on the table there, and you go, oh, wait a minute. Clue number 1 and clue number 2, pieces go together. I think you just figured it out.
No,
Just give it to them.
I mean, it is an economy. If things start
Yeah.
to stall, sometimes
Yeah.
you give out a clue. Like just kick it back into play.
Yeah.
Jared Rasher made a comment here that he's read 2 FFG Star Wars adventures where people are gathering information and they're giving out red herrings on a successful check.
Oh,
It's like, why would you
That's
do
rough.
that?
successful checks Now, if you want to add the red herring in because you got threats on a roll,
That's interesting.
that's interesting
Sure.
to me.
Because then you don't know which ones are the real information,
Right.
which ones are the bad information.
Right. But it also mechanically states that, look, yes, I muddied up the waters because you got 3 threats.
Yeah, that's the City of Mist one with the answer that is like a half truth or
Yeah.
whatever, not a completely clear.
Yeah, but red herrings on a successful check,
Yeah, that's
that
just
is, somebody said it in there, that is lazy writing.
Yeah.
Do not reward positive checks by stymieing
Yep.
the mystery. You are violating actually the social contract of the mystery.
Yep. So Phil, hey, how would you hack these things?
Yeah, so the hack, so I was looking for something that like, because Gumshoe solves my acquisition understanding hack, right? Gumshoe, the first time I heard it, I was like, fuck yes, Robin Laws, that is correct. That is the fix for mysteries. But I was trying to figure out the piece that I thought was missing, which is the solving the mystery, right? So what happens if they can't put all those clues together, right? What happens? So, I think there'd be a cool, mechanism that could be put into play where the GM could kind of nudge the group or ask a leading question that might steer them into solving the mystery. So I was thinking about this for Tales, right? So Tales of the Loop, because this happened. We were playing the game of Tales of the Loop, and we had made it through all the scenes where you could get clues, and they just needed like a little nudge to get to finally put it together.
We were not quite there. We were like,
Right. So like they were just a little off, and I was like, oh, I just want to like tell you a thing. Like you have the clues. I just want like if I moved clue 4 and 2 and put them in a different order, this would all make sense. And so part of what I started thinking about was there could be specifically for Tales, I could put in a mechanism that when you get extra successes, you could spend a success to buy like an insight token, and towards the end of the mystery, you could spend the insight token for either asking me a question or letting me give you a hint. Like, hey, you have all these clues, but have you considered like, where did that ship come from? Oh yeah, we should have like, oh no, wait, we know that clue. We know that, like that kind of thing. So I would like something like that, like a currency or something that like helps you assemble the final mystery. Like you've got enough clues, or we're 75% of the way there. We just don't know what the other question we're supposed to ask is. Can we spend an insight token? Like, hey, you never checked on that DNA sample. Oh, you're right. We should have done the DNA sample, right? And then like basically it's like a GM help. Like I'm gonna push you back onto the mystery.
It is essentially we're stuck. How do we
get forward?
Where's the button that I can click for the hint?
Yeah, but instead of clicking a button for hint, let's go with an in-game currency, right? And let's do it off of extra successes. Like you've made extra successes during the investigation. You've bought some basically momentum. Yeah, that was my hack, and I'm actually seriously considering putting that in.
Anything else? No, yes, maybe?
I'm good. What about you and Bob? Do you guys got some hacks?
Yeah, like I always wanted a mechanic that allowed players to push on the mystery and get their answers. Like, so not just finding. Like, it's basically the same thing you're saying, right? So, like, I always thought that City of Mist was good because it allows you just to ask. It does the thing that you just said. Like, you can roll and then ask the game master a question.
Yeah, like what haven't I done here?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
where am I going? Like, I have all this stuff. What does it mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can actually, like, that could be a thing. Like, we're sitting around putting these clues together. All right, we're going to roll. I got a 10 plus. All right, how does this all connect?
Right. How does the shipping manifest, and how does this thing connect to each other?
How do my clues that we've gathered all together?
Yeah.
How does it all connect? Which is essentially that mechanic. So
Yeah.
I mean,
I like that same idea for the spend in Gumshoe. That instead of spending to get another tidbit, spend and ask me a question.
what about you, Bob?
Oh, sorry. The chat room just got me.
Yeah, they were doing their thing.
So yeah, for kind of like a wish list thing, be like Gumshoe, man. If you're creating an investigation game, if you have investigation in your game, don't make it hard to find the clues. give them the easy stuff. Let them get more information with the spends or extra successes or whatever, those kind of things. Doing something like, you know, leveraging the excess or the higher rolls to give more information based beyond the base information, that kind of thing. You know, that to me is the way to go. Yeah.
All right. What's going on in the chat room?
Chat room is hopping. We're having a good time. And the after show bleed is like just
It's my fault. I tied up the mic stand.
Yeah.
We were already going off the
That's
rails.
fine.
yeah.
Are you okay, mic stand?
But,
what's your color, mic stand?
Yeah.
It's been tied up for a while. I need to make sure it's okay.
Its color's black.
Yeah. So
It told me.
It's not a valid color. It makes me concerned.
The mic stand is kind of dark, man.
we have a lively group tonight, so I think the after show is going to be fun.
All right. So should we go to the social?
Doing the
media
thing,
platform?
man. Do the
All right, here we
thing.
go. All right. So of you Waxberg, he asked what system to use for running a Werewolf the Apocalypse game. And can I even open this in G+? And I can. Look at that. So I can actually read the thing that is about to pop up. Fantastic.
I got a whole
So-
bunch of it depends on this one.
If I was going to run a Werewolf the Apocalypse campaign, what system would you recommend I use? Obviously, I could use the old rules or whatever has been updated in W20, Werewolf 20th edition. I assume that's what that is. It's been a long time since I've GM'd World of Darkness, and the system is pretty dated nevertheless. I'm sure I could learn hard on my modern GM, lean hard on my modern GM skills. I could adapt Werewolf the Forsaken. It's not that different, and at least it's a bit more reliable a chassis to GM, although I still feel I'd be working a bit against the game design. I could use a generic system like Fate, Savage Worlds, or GURPS. It's a little bit of work, but probably not a lot, and there might be some stuff others have put together online. However, I'm not super confident any of these systems hit the right tone, although I'll admit I might not be doing a good job of imagining Werewolf the Apocalypse being run in, say, Savage Worlds.
I think my one question to ask is what werewolf game are you trying to run? Like, for instance, if I was going to ask this question about vampire, which vampire game are you trying to play? Are you trying to play the game of undead political intrigue, or are you trying to play the game of superpowered bloodsuckers punching supernatural things in the face? Because White Wolf World of Darkness did both of those things, and I suspect, because I didn't play Werewolf as much, Werewolf does pretty much the same thing as well.
Isn't Werewolf the eco-terrorist game?
That's
Kind
a
of, yeah.
facet of it, but it also is a political bend because there's all the different tribes, there's, territories and stuff like that. So the point being is that if you are playing the political intrigue style game, then I'm going to say I would hack Urban Shadows. I would turn the factions into groups of tribes. In fact, I would turn factions into groups of tribes based on signs of the phases of the moon.
Sure.
Right. The full moon tribes, the half, that like partial, whatever. And that would be my political game, because everything I need to do in that game has debts and favors and all that stuff. But if I'm going to just, if I'm just going to turn into a werewolf and go punch things, then I'd probably just do this thing up in Fate.
So what is the premise of Werewolf the Forsaken?
I don't remember Forsaken. I remember Apocalypse.
What was the premise of Werewolf the Apocalypse?
You're like a bunch of werewolves, and the worm is corrupting the earth, and so fight the worm and
Save Mother Gaia.
and argue among each other because you're all tribes and charged up with werewolf blood and stuff like
All right,
that.
so you're werewolves. There's a greater evil out there, yet you're tribal and vying to be the head tribe.
No, you just don't like all the tribes. Like, it's, it's like vampire in that, right? So like, these guys get along with these guys,
So if you're the defenders of Gaia but drop the ball and the world is fucked, is that the situation?
I mean, that's part of it, right? So here's an adventure, right? I could write an adventure for Werewolf where the worm is polluting, the worm's polluting this like part of the city, right? Like, they're dumping chemicals in a part of the city. And in doing so, they've woken this like toxic sludge spirit.
So you've actually answered my question by the fact that there's not really a good answer for my question.
I know that's my problem with
Yeah.
this one as well, is which werewolf game do you want to play? do you want to go and punch supernatural things in the face with your, your giant Krynos form and claws? Because that game I could do in Savage Worlds, Fate, or whatever. Or do you want to play this game of the political machinations of tribes confined in this area with an external force struggling against them? Then I'm like more Urban Shadows-ish.
So it's not really a game as it is like this little toolkit that you can use to build a thing.
Well, I mean, I think it speaks to the schizophrenia of the original White Wolf games, right? Vampire had the same paradox in it, right? Like, I
have a pretty firm grasp on Vampire. Vampire is supposed to be a game about. It can potentially be a game about personal horror and being a monster in this world, but it's also got a political bent to it, as you are a vampire in a city trying to make your way in the city.
Okay, those two things true, but then when you go and look at the character options are all, you are basically blood-sucking superheroes.
Yeah, the thing that's supposed to rein that part in, though, is the masquerade in the city.
Yeah, to a
Like,
point.
You can't use your powers overtly, because if you do, they'll just murder you out of hand.
Yeah, you don't use them on people, but you wind up, having, bloodsucker fights.
Correct.
Or you're fighting werewolves who've encroached on your territory, or
correct, but hopefully quietly, because all that shit's supposed to be under wraps.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying, like, for instance, the game touts itself as highly political, but when you look at most of the powers, they're physical.
Yeah, but there's like a debt favor system in Vampire the Masquerade.
It's not codified. It's setting material.
Yeah.
There's not a debt like you owe somebody favors, this, that, and the other thing.
There is a thing about debt, right? But it's not codified. Like in Urban Shadows solves this problem, right? Urban Shadows
has mechanics for it.
Right. Urban Shadows has a mechanism that says you owe one debt, right? And then it also has two moves that are like when you spend that debt or when you welch on that debt. But in Vampire, there's just like a paragraph that's like boons. Vampires give each other boons.
Yeah, that's the system that I'm talking.
Right, but it has no mechanics.
Sure, but
It just has like.
But you can lean on that as a game master if you want to.
Oh, totally.
Right,
and you should. Like,
yeah.
I'm right. Go ahead.
Now, my point is then the game Vampire the Masquerade, regardless of what the mechanics are, I understand what a vampire is doing in the city. I don't understand what a werewolf is doing.
Right. So werewolf is fighting. So Gaia, in the original werewolf, you are fighting the corruption, right? The worm, the WYRM, the worm, which was like basically, it's toxic. It's poisoning the earth. It's killing.
You were trying to stop the earth from being corrupted.
Yes, and that eco-terrorism
that is
part,
a beat.
right?
Yeah.
The eco-terrorism part is that the worm often embodies things like chemical companies and things that dump, toxic waste and things like that. Like that's how the worm advances. So your eco-terrorism is like the werewolves go and tear up they tear up a chemical company because it's been dumping shit in the ground.
But it's also this tribal territorial game too.
Yeah, because it's a White Wolf game, and so there has to be all these factions, and they all don't get along.
Yep. So the factions are fighting about the best way. In my opinion, this is what the game sounds like to me. Like you're part of a tribe. These tribes are all kind of fighting the worm.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily agree on the right way to do it.
Exactly.
So they fight amongst themselves to decide which is the best way to do it.
Right. Like there's one group, and I forget what their name are, the Silver somethings that are like city dwellers. And they're like, or no, maybe the silver ones are royalty. There's another one, maybe the glass walkers are the city ones. But there's like
I played
ones,
a Get of Fenris, which were the
like nuke them all.
I just want to kill everybody, kind of.
Right. The get like let's eat them. Like let's eat them. They're all bad.
So we know that there's something overarching that has to be. So there should be. I mean, you could do it in Fate.
I mean,
easily.
One, you could do anything in Fate, but I think it's more.
Well, my point is with Fate, like you can have the impending issues, right, that move along.
Yeah.
Like this company is going to do this. This tribe is going to do this. Now you have. So then, when you build out your scenarios or your overarching campaign structure, you have an impending issue that is this, which is they're essentially fronts. So you could do it in other games too.
They are,
but. Like this company is doing X thing, so then you say, well, then the question's out there. When this happens, something bad will happen.
Right.
Also, this tribe is vying for power. So when this happens, and also like this other group of vampires or wraiths or something else is doing something on the side over here. So when if nobody deals with them, then something bad happens, and then you can just have your extras be like what happens when you switch back and forth between werewolf and whatnot, and and how political, and fix some stress tracks and things like that for how political factions work and things like that, and who's in charge and who's not in charge, and how clout works that way.
Yeah.
It might even be more effective than trying to hack Urban Shadows into it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I will always say I could hack something into Fate. Like, that's no big, like, that's never going to be a problem. I just think that, I think Urban Shadows is in a lot of ways, what the World of Darkness was attempting to be.
Yeah, I'm focusing pretty hard on the werewolf side of it, though. I don't know if you'd have to build up some different moves for werewolves fighting with each other, because they're just a little bit more beefy and meatier and tougher.
Oh, I mean, well, but see, that would be the thing. If I was going to do an Urban Shadows hack, it wouldn't be so much about them beating up on each other. It'd be more about the political machinations, because that's, I think, a bit more of what that game's about. If I'm going to do the, we're going to go punch the worm in the face game, then I'm going right to Fate or Savage.
Well, you should have both, right? Like, because you can do the political thing with Fate, too, because you can just use how stress tracks and influence work with each other.
Yeah.
You can almost institute a debt. It's not even a debt system, I don't think, because tribes. It's not about debt. Tribes are about hierarchy.
Right.
Because werewolves and tribes is probably more of a hierarchy thing than a debt.
There is a hierarchy thing. Yep.
Yeah. So you have to build that hierarchical structure within the game too. And there's some games that do that, isn't there? Where you actually build out a hierarchy, like the pecking order, basically.
In
not Fate or whatever. I thought there's some role playing games out there that do that, but you find that game. I can't remember what it is offhand, and you find that, and then you can use that system, and then.
I mean, I could think of a couple other interesting variants. Like I could do you could do a Night Witches variant where your day phase is the tribal politics and your night phase is we go fight the worm, and you abstract the we fight the worm into a couple moves, and it's, did you get scars? Did something permanent happen to you? That kind of thing. Like I could do a 2-phase game like that.
You could. That would be fine too.
Right, like that would make the worm part a bit more abstract. Like we're going to go on a run tonight against Pentex Corporation. This is our objective. Now let's make a couple rolls and narrate what happens, as opposed to, hey, this is a Fate game, and this is I draw a map on the thing. Here are the areas for Pentex Corporation. Let's get playing.
So, I would look for a game that is more generic than Powered by the Apocalypse, because I wouldn't want to do the heavy lift.
Correct.
And the generic game that's Powered by the Apocalypse, you can do the thing where it's fighting the worm, and you can institute the hierarchical system and how you can maneuver it with your, because those are really the two systems that you need to build for on top of whatever the generic game is.
Yeah,
that would be the way that I would do it.
Yeah, I could definitely see some Fate. I could definitely see some Fate hacks. That would be pretty cool.
You could do it with Savage Worlds too if you wanted to. Because
Rob
the fighting
says,
part will be effective.
Rob says instead of Night Witches, use the Watch. It's got that phase flavor from Night Witches.
There we go.
Plus, it's got the Shadow, which could be the worm.
Oh yeah. Nice, Rob.
There you go.
Good call. That's actually, I actually haven't read the Watch yet. Oh, and
there's a pecking
it's got
order.
A pecking order because it's got ranks.
Night
there we
Watch.
go.
So there you go. Like maybe the Watch is the way.
All right,
to go.
so the Watch looks like it's going to be. What do we? You don't need us. You just need Rob.
There you go.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. Now I have to open this next one, which is from Ange Murray about fashion in the apocalypse. Is that what we're talking about?
It was somebody tweeting about a fashion show, and they were describing the images in the tweets as if they were like, somebody that had been scavenging, in a post-apocalyptic landscape.
Oh, that's pretty accurate, actually.
Yeah, it's hysterical.
Now that I'm looking through it, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I thought it'd be fun to read a couple of them.
Sure. So, this one, it looks like a white coat with a red armband, some medals, a T-shirt, and some black boots. The tweet was, it was not so hard to find medals. So many of the bodies hid them, winking up at the cold, closed sky. She'd like to take them for decoration and for trade. Folks who remembered what the stars and birds stood for, those folk would weep and give her water.
I love it.
Oh, here's one. She's wearing a mask and a black dress.
Oh, I'm looking at it. Yep.
Yep. There was only one mask in the group, and they shared it round. When it was your turn, you'd have just long enough to get used to cleaner air, to wash out the dust and ash in your mouth, to stop coughing. But then it would be someone else's turn, and it was always horrible going back. Oh, these are great. Oh, the one right below, it's fantastic. She's got like a full scarf on with a hat and a gray vest and black pants with some furry boots. You could always improvise an air filter, but it was never perfect. And when you took it off, there'd be a puff of particles. Some folk these days took to wearing scarves always, hiding their faces and eyes, blunting their sight and smell of the dead world.
These
Those are pretty good. I'm digging them.
It's hilarious.
That's awesome stuff.
All right. Anything else? We good?
I think we're good.
All right. Well, let's
That's
do some
some funny
Patreon
stuff.
shout-outs. It's time for the... oh, man. It's the Royal Court, but I don't have the Royal... I thought I brought the Royal Court names
didn't
over. And
paste-
I didn't paste the Royal Court names over. Oh, man.
Uh-oh.
Damn it.
Damn it. Well, I'm still going to read them.
Yeah, read
Just,
them.
not
Just without the Royal Court names.
There you go.
Yeah. So, Rob Whitaker, who is the Marshal of Mark? I remember most of them. I
Okay.
think.
Well, good luck.
We'll find out.
luck.
I don't remember John Smith, sorry. Craig, the Duke of One Name, or the Lord of One Name. Stephen Farrell, the Knight of Lairs. Eric Bonts, the Duke of Gators. Sean Gilligore, the Knight of All Edges. Eric Jeppesen. Pleiadian is the Duke of the Darkest Sun, because of the Dark Sun.
Sun,
pod.
sure, yeah.
Jared Rasher is the Scribe of MMP, or the Royal Scribe, I think. Yep. Scott Robinson. Eileen Barnes, she's the Duchess of Pandas Talking Games.
I'm full support of that.
Yep. Jesse Edmond is the Royal Physician.
Doc.
Yep, Doc. Donnie Harville, I can't remember. Eric Menge, it has something to do with his webcomic that he writes. So I'm bad there. Brian Kirch is the Royal Physic, so like an alchemist, a psychic doctor. Andy Olson, I don't remember. Merrick Blackman is the Royal D&D reviewer. Rob Aberzato is the Gauntlet of the Queen, if I remember correctly.
Nice.
GM Gerrymander.
Oh, he is like
Isn't he the Lord of the After Show?
Lord of the After
Lord
Show.
of the After Show.
That's a title.
Toby Sennett is it has something to do with being across the pond.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember though. Damn. And Kevin Lovecraft is the Royal Beard.
Yes, he is.
And back. I mean, for a while he lost it.
Yep.
I have to say it was a bit odd when Kevin took the beard off. Like, I saw a picture and then I was like, I'm like, that person looks familiar. And then I looked at the post and I was like, no.
What?
It's
What?
Kevin Lovecraft's missing his beard.
I mean, he could have robbed a bank
He could have.
with that beard gone. No one would have noted. Like, no one would have been able to ID him after he grew it back. That's craziest.
Somebody just mentioned in the chat room that we need somebody else to get to the $10 level so that we can appoint a Royal Inquisitor.
Oh, I'm all about the Inquisitor.
I mean, you can't be. You don't patron, so you can't be the Inquisitor.
No, I'm not saying I could be it.
Oh, I mean, we need.
I'm all about there
having
being an Inquisitor.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, let's.
And a Baron.
Is there anything else
Yeah.
we want to do, or we should get out of here?
Inquisition, what a show.
Bob, anything in the chat
I
room?
think
or
we
go?
should roll on into the thing.
All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for listening.
If you are free Tuesday evenings, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, 6:45 p.m. the Queen's time, come join us live on Twitch where you can chat with the other listeners in the ever awesome chat room for life and occasionally ask us a question.
If you cannot make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week wherever you get your podcast, and take a listen to some of the other shows on the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Advanced Insight, Bone Stone, Obsidian, Pandas Talking Games, Cyberspeak with Darcy and Troy, the Gnome Cast, the Wednesday Evening Podcast, also Zhang Yu Hustle, Hobbs and Friends of the OSR, and our newest member, She's a Super Geek. You can and should also check out some of our brother podcasts, The Knights of the Night and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
Then, after you have pieced together all your clues and are ready to solve the mystery, drop us some feedback. We're keeping it simple now. You can just reach us at one email address, mmp@misdirectedmark.com.
If you send me peanut butter and jelly porn for Bob, I will forward it to him and not look at it. So just put peanut butter and jelly porn in there. I will change the subject before I forward it.
There we go. Check out our Facebook group. Hit us up on Twitter, the network, and the show is at MisdirectedMark.
Yeah.
I'm at DNA Phil. He's at Robert M. Everson. And lastly, but never leastly, The Light 101.
Where you can find all the answers to all your mysteries of life.
And then, before you pull off the rubber mask and reveal the killer, do it in our G+ community.
Old Man Smithers.
Impossible.
And I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids. Hey, if you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MMP. Patrons get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, and other special releases.
Ah, yes. And with that, this has been a Misdirected Mark production, which is the media arm of Encoded Designs. A mic drop.
We out. I'm totally spanking at the mic while it's tied up.